Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games Discord. We have Jonathan on SnOko versus Peter on Terrible Fate. What an absolute meme of a deck. And grabbing an Underground Sea. Looks like his sideboard is out on the table there. We've got a Thoughtseize. And Terrible Fate basically SnOko, but it's got some copies of Shared Fate in there as a type of finisher. Comes down and forces your opponent to pivot into a control shell where they are really behind in terms of their board presence and mana development. So you wipe everything out with Dead of Winter, and we've got a Ponder here for Jonathan. You wipe everything out with Dead of Winter and spot removal, and then once you land that Shared Fate, now they're trying to rebuild, but they can't because your deck literally doesn't have anything useful for them. The closest thing to a win con there is going to be Oko, and it's going to be pretty difficult to make that work. You also have Punishing Fire as a primary path to victory, so this is going to be pretty grindy. And there's Oko. I'd love to see Dak Faden in this deck. I don't know if that's been tested, but that seems like that could be some fun. Discarding those Punishing Fires. Be pretty sick. It's a lot of power in these 3-mana Planeswalkers now. Force of Will, pitching Brainstorm, stopping Oko. He can really run away with games. And neither of these decks going to be able to clear him through creature combat very easily. You do have Abrupt Decay and some other spot removal that can potentially deal with the Planeswalker. But not before some advantage is potentially gained, either getting a food or an elk. And there's an Oko on John's side of the board. And that one does stick. Here comes a food. And Peter's brainstorming, looking to find an Abrupt Decay in all likelihood to get Oko out of here. And he does have it. Jonathan asking if he'd prefer to eliminate the food or the Planeswalker. Peter, heads up play, chooses the Planeswalker. Prismatic Vista. Oh, and yet another Oko. And this is going to go ahead and get Elk mode started. Abrupt Decay takes out Oko again, but there is an Elk on board. We'll see if that ends up being enough. Peter at 14, likely to be able to handle that. There's probably a lot of game left. We've got a Brainstorm along with Prismatic Vista on board. So 2 cards going back, and now a Thoughtseize. Shows Punishing Fires, Thoughtseize, and Drown in the Loch. Drown in the Loch goes away. Just a discard spell and some Punishing Fires. Those Punishing Fires, with a little bit more mana, will be able to take down this Elk. And now a Ponder. Elk's turning sideways. Peter under pressure. Not a lot of resources to work with here. A Drown in the Loch takes out one of them. Stepped away from the game for a little bit. I'm actually not positive that Astrolabe is an Elk as well. I am able to pause these. OBS has improved since I started, and ooh, Euro, that is a big card here. Drawing a card, gaining life, making a land drop perhaps? No land drop, but he's going to be able to escape next turn and be a very dangerous threat. That ETB is one thing, but attacking each turn, Yeah, so the astrolabe is actually just an astrolabe, not also an elk. So Peter going to be facing down. Icefang Kotal being flashed in. A Force of Will taken, astrolabe left in hand. Punishing Fire takes down the bird. Actually, it's just a snake. Snake with wings. It's not a bird snake. And blue. We have double green here off of Trop. Yes. Blue, blue, green, green. And a fetch land. Allowing for Sylvan. So Euro and Sylvan Library in the same turn. What a huge pivot. The life gain from Euro going to offset the life loss from Sylvan. Jonathan can start ripping through his library, drawing 4 extra cards a turn. Or 4 cards a turn. 3 off of Sylvan, 1 off of Euro. Might as well keep him at this point. Astrolabe cycling, drawing a card. He's actually putting cards back, though. I am surprised. I would just be ripping through my library at this point. Use that life as a resource. Who cares about 8 life? You go back to 19. That is not that big a deal. Yeah, Euro. Entering. Dying to the legend rule. And, yeah, essentially Jonathan using a bunch of mana to draw extra cards. Peter scooping it up. Yeah, that may be a situation of not quite front-running enough. There are games where you feel like you really can't lose, and sometimes you really just need to continue to put tremendous pressure. Leaving openings like that can occasionally give your opponent the chance to get back into the game. Now, Terrible Fate, probably not going to capitalize on that type of opening. But just in general, I think the main line there is going to be draw extra cards, draw even more cards, end up with a huge fistful of cards in hand, and just be in an unassailable position where you just, anything your opponent does, you just have so many extra cards that none of it's going to be relevant. They kill your guys, just play another one. You end up with an Oko on board soon and just really be in a truly unassailable position. So let's see how games 2 and maybe 3 go. We'll skip ahead. All right, I believe we're done with the shuffling here. And Peter's going to be on the play. Euro, just a tremendous card in this type of matchup. The 3 life, it's interesting. It's often not that great in some of the more aggressive matchups. It's not actually enough in some of the aggressive matchups to take and spend 3 mana to undo a lightning bolt. There are games where you're still dead if you turn 3 Euro to aggro, but decks that are kind of mid-rangey, chipping away with like a Delver or Icefang Coatls or hitting you with Elks, it really does a lot to undo that, essentially being a time walk of sorts. And then, of course, you've got the Oko, life gain. So many ways to gain life and stabilize. It's quite the hand. As I was musing there, did we see a Thoughtseize take a Sylvan Library and not be defended by Veil of Summer? Is that what I'm seeing? I mean, that's what I'm seeing. I'm having a tough time believing it. Maybe he drew the Veil for turn after the Thoughtseize? But there's a face down card, which is what I think he would have drawn. I don't know. I am a little baffled by that. Veil of Summer, one of the best possible replies to a Thoughtseize. We have a Brainstorm in response. Jonathan's hand going to be a little bit of a mystery here as 2 cards get to go back and be shuffled away. And Oko coming down onto a essentially empty board. Just lands. He can dominate a lot of boards regardless of the game state, but when he's played into an empty board, that is some of the more brutal games with Oko, just generating a continual stream of card advantage, creating an elk every other turn, and just having incredibly high loyalty. You think back to the original Garruk, for example. Garruk? Let me know how you actually say that. But the Wild Speaker, making beasts or untapping lands. He was playable back in Lorwyn. An exciting new addition to the game, but making beasts was a minus ability. You couldn't just continually ramp up the loyalty. That's really the main issue here with Oko in terms of people's complaints, is just how much loyalty he has as he continues to make food and then elks, gaining 1.5 loyalty per turn and half an elk per turn. A Thoughtseize. And Oko is taken. This time, no green mana available for the Veil of Summer. We have an Ice Fang. But this Sylvan Library from Peter, incredibly dangerous. And a fetch, and Abrupt Decay, and no more dueling Sylvan Libraries. How does that actually work with Shared Fate? That would not work well with Shared Fate. You would not actually be putting the cards back. Abrupt Decay takes out the other Sylvan Library, so no more libraries on the board. Historically, in control matchups, paying that extra life could be very, very worthwhile, as your opponent can't really punish the life loss. Oko makes a food, making his presence known. Thoughtseize sees Force of Negation, Force of Will, and Ice Fang. It's a pretty solid hand. Ice Fang is taken, leaving a couple of counter spells for Jonathan. And an Oko to ride out. It is time for an Elk. And turning sideways, he's got to hold on for 3 more turns. And he does have some tools to do that. And this pair of counter spells, possibly 2 counter spells online, he may be able to hard cast Force of Negation and pitch for Force of Will. So Abrupt Decay is probably part of the solution here for Peter, but he's got 2 cards to handle. Helm of Obedience. And this is likely just going to get Force of Negation. Checking to see if Jonathan has another blue card, forcing, and it is in fact an Ice Fang. Ice Fang was taken off of the board, or out of Jonathan's hand, I should say, with Thoughtseize, but another one was immediately drawn, and now Elk turning sideways. Peter may have had a possible win there with the Helm, but now it looks like this Elk is just going to wrap things up, a Euro, driving that nail further into the coffin as SnOko takes it down over Terrible Fate. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.